Hey guys, welcome to the Reparenting Daily podcast, your daily guide for inner child healing. This podcast helps you establish a consistent reparenting routine, and it's divided into 3 sections. The first is a daily reading, the second is a discussion of that reading, followed by suggested journal prompts, and the last section is a peaceful meditation for closing. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening from whenever and wherever you're joining us. I'm so glad that you could join us here on this journey of self-expansion and growth. If this is your first time, welcome. Now, before we dive in, I'd like to again remind us of the congratulations of passing the 500 episode marker. And as a celebration of that, I've opened up the Patreon community for free membership so that people can join our Zoom calls for free. There are a lot of people struggling out there. There's a lot going on. So I thought this could be a way to provide some help and, to give some thanks for all the support that I've received so far. You can also choose if you'd like to be a paid Patreon member, and that will help me to subsidize some of the costs and expenses that I have for this project. I'm still running this out of my own pocket, so it's about $2,000 to $5,000 a year that it costs me to produce this actually. So I'm not really making money from this. It's something that I'm doing for myself and hopefully to be able to help others. And so I'm coming from a genuine place here. The second thing that I'd like to remind you is that you can also find the Reparenting Daily Journal. You can purchase that on Amazon. It's another way to support the podcast. It's under $20. And it basically allows you to follow along with all of the monthly and weekly themes. It gives you space to keep your notes. And yeah, if you join the team or the Zoom calls, it might be a great way for us to all stay aligned and be working together. The last thing I'd like to give you a head up on is the Fairy Tales for Reparenting Daily series. As I mentioned earlier, I've had some editing issues with that because in the springtime, the end of spring, I did some reworking to structure those into certain themes. So like the beginning, middle, and end of the hero's journey. And in the midst of reorganizing and restructuring the stories and also upgrading the artwork, some of the text is a bit mixed and jumbled all over the place. Sorry about that. When I was in the editing phase for the first time, they did not send the proofread copies to the Netherlands, and so I had to work, around and trying to find a way to get the copy to edit, and it's just been a mess. So basically, that's going to take a little bit longer. I'm going to aim to have that done by the end of the year, but I have burned my eyes, so I am very limited. Excuse me, with what I can do and time I spent on the computer. And so I would have had that done much earlier. I would have liked to have that already done, but here we are. And so in any case, once that's available, again, I'll give you a heads up, but please do hold off on purchasing the Fairy Tales for Reparenting Daily for now. Or Fairy Tales for Reparenting series, not the Fairy Tales for Reparenting Daily. That's it today. So without further ado, let's dive into today's practice. Welcome back. There's some noise and construction going on next door to me, so you might notice that. Sorry for that, an excuse. But we'll keep going today anyway. Today's reading is Cultivating Empathy by the American Psychological Association. Just as a reminder, we are in September and the theme is emotional intelligence. We're in week 3, which is September 15th until the 21st. And the theme for this week is building empathy and understanding others. This article is quite long, and there are many links here as well. So I will not read the entire thing. I would just encourage you to check out the article in its entirety when you have some time. Cultivating Empathy. Psychologists, research, offer insights into why it's so important to practice the right kind of empathy and how to grow these skills. In a society marked by increasing division, we could all be a bit more kind and cooperative and tolerant towards each others. Beneficial as those traits are, psychological research suggests that empathy may be the umbrella trait required to develop all these virtues. As empathy researcher and Stanford psychologist Samuel Zecki describes it, empathy is the psychological superglue that connects people and undergirds cooperative and kindness. This is from The Economist, 2019. Even if empathy doesn't come naturally, research suggests people can cultivate it and hopefully improve society as a result. In general, empathy is a powerful predictor of things we consider to be positive behaviors that benefit society, organizations, and relationships, said Karina Schuschman, a professor of sociology at the University of Pittsburgh. Scholars have shown across domains that empathy motivates many types of pro-social behaviors, such as forgiveness, volunteering, helping, and that is negatively associated with things like aggression and bullying. For example, research by C. Daniel Batson, a professor emeritus of social psychology at the University of Kansas, suggests that empathy can motivate people to help someone else in need. And another study suggests empathy levels predict charitable donation behavior. Anna Rumble, PhD, at the University of Northern Arizona, found empathy can override non-cooperation, causing people to be more generous and forgiving and less retaliative. Empathetic people ask themselves, maybe I need to find out before I jump to harsh judgment, she said. Empathy can also promote better relationships with strangers. For example, Batson's past research highlights that empathy can help people adopt more positive attitudes and helping behaviors towards stigmatized groups, particularly the disabled and homeless individuals and those with AIDS. Empathy may also be a crucial ingredient in mitigating bias and systemic racism. Jason Okonofuna, assistant professor at the University of California, Berkeley, has found that teachers are more likely to employ severe discipline with black students, and that they are more likely to label black students as troublemakers. These labels, Okonofuna said, can shape how teachers interpret behavior, forging a path towards students' school failure and incarceration. When Okonofuna and his colleagues created an intervention to help teachers build positive relationships with students and value their perspective, their increased empathy reduced punitive discipline. Similarly, Okonofuna and colleagues found empathy from parole officers can prevent adults from probation for reoffending. In spite of potential benefits, empathy itself isn't an automatic path towards social good. To develop empathy that actually helps people requires strategy. If you're trying to develop empathy in yourself or in others, make sure you're developing the right kind. Sarah Cawthorne, a PhD professor at the University of Indiana who studies empathy and altruism. The right kind of empathy. Empathy is crucial for psychologists working with patients in practice, especially when patients are seeking validations for their feelings. However, empathy can be draining if not practiced correctly. Over-identifying with someone else's emotions can be stressful, leading to cardiovascular responses similar to what you experienced in some painful or threatening situation. Outside of clinical practice, some scholars argue empathy is unhelpful and even damaging. For example, Paul Bloom, Dr. PhD, psychology professor at Yale University, argues that because empathy directs helping behavior towards specific individuals, most often those in one's own group, it may prevent more beneficial help to others. In some cases, empathy may also promote antagonism or aggression. For example, Daniel Cameron, a associate professor of psychology and senior research associate at the Rocks Institute and director of Empathy and Moral Psychology Lab at Penn University, has found that apparent biases in empathy, like parochialism and the numbness to mass suffering, may sometimes be due to motivated choices. He also notes that empathy can still have risks in some cases. There are times when what looks like empathy promotes favoritism at the expense of the outgroup, said Cameron. Many of these outcomes are associated with what that type of empathy we called self-oriented perspective taking. Imagine yourself in someone else's shoes. How you take the perspective can make a difference, said John Doviolo. When you ask me to imagine myself in another person's position, Doviolo says, I may experience a lot of personal distress, which can interfere with pro-social behaviors. Taking on that emotional burden could also increase your own risk for distressing emotions. According to Conrath, the form of empathy shown most beneficial for the giver and receiver is another oriented response. It's a cognitive style of perspective taking, where someone imagines another person's perspective, reads their emotions, and can understand them in general, she said. Other oriented perspective taking may result in empathetic concern, also known as compassion, which could be seen as an emotional response to a cognitive process. It's that emotion that may trigger helping behavior. If I simply understand you're in trouble, I may not act. but the emotion energizes me, says Dovido. While many clinicians may find empathy to come naturally, psychologist research can help clinicians guide patients towards other-oriented empathy, and can also help practitioners struggling with compassion fatigue to re-up their empathy. According to Pullen, people are more likely to opt out of empathy if it feels cognitively or emotionally taxing, which could impact psychologists' ability to effectively support their patients. To avoid compassion fatigue with patients and maintain the empathy required for helping them, Pullen said it's important to reflect on the patient's feelings and experiences without necessarily trying to feel it yourself. It's about putting yourself in the right role, he said. Your role isn't to be the sufferer, but the caregiver. Thank you, and that's the reading for today. Today's reading distinguishes the right kind of empathy, an other-oriented perspective that includes accurate perspective taking with empathic concerns and compassion, rather than self-oriented over-identification that typically drains us, such as empathetic distress, favoritism, and burnout. From an emotional intelligence lens, this is EQ in action. Point 1, self-awareness and regulation, to notice when we're sliding into distress or bias. Number 2, social awareness, to see context, ask open questions, read fiction and diverse narratives, and find common ground or in-group links. And number 3, relationship management, to practice curiosity, second-guessing snap judgments, and offering care without merging the suffering, becoming the carer and not the sufferer. A growth mindset matters. Empathy is a skill that we all can train. Within developing empathy and understanding others, this article offers concrete builders. Expose yourself to differences. Read character-driven stories. Use oxytocin supportive clues, such as warm eye contact and a gentle tone. You can ask better questions and map your empathy blocks, where you avoid, judge, or shut down. The target is compassionate accuracy, seeing people as they are in their context while keeping your nervous system settled enough to help. Reparenting. For reparenting, this is the inner stance of the loving parent. Create internal safety so your inner child isn't flooded when you empathize. Boundaries keep you in the caregiver role, I'm with you, instead of it in the sufferer role, I am you. Reparenting gives you the self-regulation, self-worth, and predictability to reduce fear and defensiveness, so empathy doesn't collapse into people-pleasing, rescuing, or burnout. Your inner parent models curiosity over time, context over judgment, and compassion over fusion. As we go on to the journal prompts today, number 1, caregiver versus sufferer. Where does my empathy tip into over-identification? I feel responsible, flooded, or biased. What boundary or self-soothing ritual would help me in the caregiver stance next time? It would keep me in the caregiver stance next time. And number 2, empathy block map. Identify one person or group I find it hard to empathize with. What snap assumptions do I make? What questions could I ask? Or what story media could I consume to add context and accuracy? And number 3, reparenting cue. When my inner child feels unsafe during hard conversations, what words beneath pattern or physical cue, for example, my hand on my heart or feet grounded, will I use to say, you're safe, I'm here, we can listen with curiosity and still keep our limits. That's it for today. As always, thanks for being here. Take care of yourself and please do be well. Welcome back, welcome back. Now, this is the third and final section of the daily podcast. This is your silent meditation. Please go ahead and find a space where you can be comfortable and undisturbed, where you can relax and spend some time with yourself for this 10-minute silent meditation. You can choose to be sitting, standing, lying down, or in whatever position makes you comfortable today. Take a moment to simply be with yourself. Focus on your breath and gently connect with each part of your body. If thoughts arise, don't let them overwhelm you. Just observe them without attachment. Imagine them as leaves drifting down atop a river, passing by without needing your engagement. Stay present, grounded, and open to this moment, no matter what time you are listening and practicing this meditation. Namaste.